around him, but he just can't change no more.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed, support causes that matter, change lives, change communities, change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we're fighting against childhood cancer every day. At the heart of this battle are our donors.
Most of us want to make some type of difference in the lives of others. St. Jude does miraculous work.
The fact that no one has to pay, it's a place where everyone is treated as an equal.
Everybody is welcome here. And it doesn't matter your religion or what part of the world you're from, all that is taken away. It just gives you some hope.
It's just a nice feeling to put your energy into something that really does genuinely make a difference in a child's life.
There's just no greater gift. If we have the ability to help, then we have a responsibility to help.
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Find out how you can help at stjude.org.
Introducing the YMCA. Sure, you know the Y for a swim or a game of hoops, but we're more than that. We're a cause. When you take a jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Practice yoga as a teen practices her leadership skills. We give people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. So while you might think of the Y as the place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. That's the why. We're so much more. Visit ymca.net/more.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
All right, good morning. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mario.
Our you and our listeners in the Kingston metropolitan area.
Roll out.
February 4th, post snowstorm, and we have some news today that we'll get to in a second. But just want everybody to know that today we're gonna try and do a interview of our audience. We're gonna try and develop some interaction here between the folks listening. So we're gonna talk about some controversial subjects and see if anyone's interested in discussing them with us. We promise not to shut anybody's opinion down. This is Kingston Community Radio, where everyone is allowed to speak, and where everyone's opinion is welcome. So, the first thing I wanted to get to was the fact that we lost a bastion of our community this morning. Tony Sinagra, it appears, passed away. His obit was in the paper. I hadn't heard about this. But Tony was a really interesting guy. I remember when I was chairman and he was chairman in the city, and we had quite a few solid interactions. And Tony was he was a man who really was dedicated to his community. He had a very close relationship with Senator Larkin.
His wife, Joan, worked for Larkin.
Yeah,
she was his district rep up here in Kingston for many years.
Yeah, and she was a fireball.
Very involved in Kingston Republican politics, politics in general, of course. And Tony, I believe, was the last Republican majority leader of the Common Council.
Wow.
Yeah, he goes back. He was in for 10 years.
You mean when the Republicans had a party in Kingston?
When they were, we actually had a few people who were in the party. And, there's any number of stories about these old timers. The one that his brother Phil Sinagra, who was, both the brothers were involved in politics on different levels. They were born in Kingston. Phil moved to Hurley and was very active out there. And still is, I believe. Phil's about 85.
He's still the chairman, I believe.
Chairman for life. And he tells a story about the family lived on the boulevard, and his father ran a truck farm, what they call a truck farm. He had some acreage in the back, and he supplied vegetables to different grocery stores and places around Kingston. And he would take the boys, Tony and Phil, with him on his rounds, and they would help load the truck and unload. It was a family business.
Yeah, sure.
And for years, Mr. Sinagra had been trying to get into Twaskill Golf Club as a customer, and there were unfortunately back in those days some prejudices against truck farmers apparently. But in any case. The father gave the sons strict orders. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, that I've worked a long time, to try to get this account. So I don't want you guys messing it up by saying anything. So keep your mouth shut. You say absolutely nothing, and you can help me unload the truck like you usually do. But you don't talk to anybody. You just keep quiet. So they pulled up those who know Twaskill. It has a pretty sharp turn coming toward the clubhouse off West O'Reilly Street. And Tony is sitting. Three of them are sitting in the front seat. It's a pickup truck.
Yeah.
And Tony's sitting by the door. And they go swinging around the turn. And Tony falls out.
Falls out of the truck. Okay.
So the father's driving the truck, and he's watching the turn. And,
sure.
And he gets up to the clubhouse, and he says to Phil, "Where's Tony?" Phil says, "Oh, he fell out back there on West O'Reilly Street." And he says, "Well, why didn't you say something?" "Well, you told us not to say anything."
He told us not to say a word.
They were very, very obedient sons. Where's Tony? He's on the road.
Oh, my God.
I actually fell out of a car when I was about 4 years old. These things you don't forget. Literally fell out, just same as Tony did. And I was banged up. Fortunately, it was a country road. It was a dirt road. It wasn't on the throughway. Yeah. And they patched me up. But the other Tony story is Tony's running for re-election, and he thinks
he was an alderman.
He was an alderman. Yeah,
right.
I should mention that he was alderman.
He was an alderman in the city, and
Midtown ward around Mahar School, and Tony was an alderman, and he was up for re-election, and it was shaping up. Democrats were starting to make a surge, and it was shaping up as a close race. And so Tony is about 8:45, 8:30 on election night. Tony's going down the roster of people who have voted, and he sees that one of his most loyal supporters hasn't voted yet. And he says, "Geez, I need every vote." So he goes over to her house and knocks on the door. Says, "Tony," he says, "Hey, you haven't voted yet." She says, "I can't vote." He says, "I'm washing the baby. The baby's in the bathtub."
Baby a bath.
So Tony says, "I'll wash the baby. You go vote." So the woman votes, and Tony gets blown out. It's like 2-1. So the joke, of course, among the Democrats was they threw Tony out with the bathwater. That was Tony. Those are the kind of memories we have of these guys.
Yeah.
These public figures, the personal things. I think.
Yeah, I remember. I remember him when you're dealing at the level that I dealt at with. Different town chairmen, and some you could trust, some you couldn't trust out of your sight. And the one thing about Tony is I could always call him up and I could solicit his opinion, and he gave it to me straight. I didn't always like it, I'll be very honest with you, but he didn't care. If you wanted to know what he was thinking, he let you know what he was thinking in no uncertain terms, and sometimes that keeps you grounded. It's those kind of folks in your organization are extremely important because they keep your feet to the ground and they keep you locked into reality, unlike what's going on today in politics. So anyway, folks, we just we did a little tribute to Tony Sinagra, and if anyone has a story that they'd like to contribute. Anyone like to share with us a Tony Sinagra story? We would love to hear. We would love to hear from you.
Tony's
the number here is 331-9255 WGHQ, and this is Kingston Community Radio.
Just a final note: Tony Sinagra's wake will be Sunday from 6 to 9, right in the middle of the Super Bowl. Or beginning of the Super Bowl at Leahy's funeral parlor.
All right. So he'll be at Leahy's on Sunday night. Probably have a mass of Christian burial on Monday.
Yeah.
All right. Which church did you have?
St. Mary's.
St. Mary's Church. Okay, downtown. All right. So, folks, you can find the obit in today's edition of the Freeman. If you want to pay respects to the family, I'm sure you don't have to step out. You can communicate other ways these days. I haven't been to a wake in forever since this COVID thing. I'm just afraid to. I'm afraid to leave my house, for crying out loud. But
it's unusual actually now.
Yeah.
Wakes were always community gatherings.
Yeah.
I've been to wakes where the lines went out when Abel Garrett.
It was a way to pay your respects.
Your respects to the families.
Now I usually send a message or something of that nature, but cannot take a chance, And I'm also happy to report that I got my second dose of the Moderna virus vaccine last Monday. And I don't know how other people out in the community have, what their experiences have been. Mine was anticipated. I would say it was anticipated. I had a headache. Monday, I got it early in the morning, and I think that we should have a shout out to the folks who are doing this work, because. I got there in the morning and there were 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 9, about 10 people at Kingston Hospital working on getting us vaccinated. I thanked every one of them because they're our unsung heroes. This is a time when we have to come together and beat this vaccine, and we need to do this as a community. The shame of it is all the finger pointing and the politics that's gotten into this. I'm afraid that the country has gotten to a point, and I'll be interested in your opinion on this, Hugh, but I'm afraid that the country's gotten to a point where every issue becomes an opportunity. And we forgot that we're Americans. We're either blue or we're red, and if you got an opportunity to whack somebody who's red, you do it. If you have an opportunity to whack somebody who's blue, and prime example was this baloney that was being fed to the people in Ulster County about the fact that the federal government, when Trump was president, was not distributing the appropriate amount of vaccine to Ulster County, when in fact it was New York State and the Democratic governor who was in charge of distributing the vaccine. And then when Biden became president, we stopped blaming the federal government, and all of a sudden vaccines were becoming more available, and it was all this positive message. And I'm thinking to myself, guys, there are plenty of issues here. Why would you pick on this one and make it political?
Well, I would differ somewhat. I think that this is a national pandemic. It's been compared to, and I think it's a valid comparison to a war, to a World War II, any war that our country is involved in. I think it began the defense began with the federal government, and I think the feds had three missions. If you think of the war, recruit the troops, build the equipment, and launch the attack.
Right.
I think the federal Warp Speed, I think, did a wonderful job, amazing job. I think historically, the medical profession will look back on Warp Speed as a once in a century type of operation that, and they deserved but never got the administration credit for that. To distribute it to 50 different states with 50 different plans, so-called, and then just kind of wipe your hands of it and say, well, the ball's in your court now, governors, was just incredible. That would be like giving World War II to 50 different generals and or admirals and sending them out there. And it was bound to be conflict and confusion, and people were dying in droves. It's an unimaginable figure, assuming all 400, it goes up every hour, 440,000, 450 as we speak, victims of this pandemic. That they were all from the pandemic, because such a large percentage, what is it, Mario, about a third of the people who died, if not more, were elderly.
Oh, yeah.
Many of them in nursing homes, and so forth. But given that number, that we lost so many people, that and understandably this hadn't happened in 100 years, and it wasn't handled very well in 1918. In fact, I think we lost far more people then. Of course, the state of medical arts being
what it
was. But the kind of discussion that we're having, and not to pat ourselves on the back, is the kind of discussion people should have with each other. But like you said, it's blue or it's red, and I don't want to hear, if you're red, I don't want to hear anything you have to say. And if I'm the opposite, and I think there's a vast number of people, Americans, in the middle, as it were, which used to be the elections. The people in the middle, not the extremists on either end, the blue or the reds, that get all the attention and all the media coverage, and it's like a stir the pot every day. That 24/7 news cycle, I think, is driving this. There's got to be something that we can accuse the other side of, or attack the other side of today. And
it's almost like and I know you were a member of the press, and I had a lot of respect for you, because I think that you were an equal opportunity abuser. I mean, people complained from both sides, complained that you saying, because obviously they all want favorable press, and if you didn't see it that way, you reported it that way. But I think that I think part of the problem is that the members of the press, many of them, are approaching their job from with a particular bias and option,
No question.
and not saying to themselves, "Look, I don't like Trump, but I'm going to give him a fair shake." It breaks down at the point of I'm going to give him a fair shake, if you know what I'm saying. It's I don't like him, and I'm going to report it this way. And I think that has been a terrible disservice to the country as a whole. One of the things I do, and I'm not plugging them or anything, but I have a tendency to read the Wall Street Journal because of all the papers I see. I think they are the fairest. They obviously, are somewhat conservative. But
you mean a paper with Wall Street on its masthead might be conservative?
Yeah, but if you read their editorials,
they're excellent.
They
Balanced,
smack Trump around just as much as they're smacking Biden around now.
And I think as a medium or as a newspaper or a television station, you earn that. You earn that by being consistently fair, and of course accurate. It begins with accurate, but you're consistently fair, and your readers over time appreciate that, and they trust you. They said this reporter is going to give me accurate, fair coverage.
I think you have a lot more credibility.
Well, it goes to credibility.
Yeah. And so I've got to question you because this one is perplexing me, and I just don't know what to make of it. But you've got the seasoned political eye. I am personally astounded that the Attorney General in New York issued a report on COVID and the cover-up, the COVID gate or whatever they're calling it.
Oh, Jesus.
Where Cuomo and his health department. I mean, I have to say, at first I was a little amused, but I'm no longer amused at the fact that one of our Ulster County state senators, Senator Skoufis, tried to get an accurate count of nursing home deaths
last August,
and the health department refused to give it to him, and essentially said to the Senate, "You guys are a joke. I mean, we don't account. You have no accountability here. We're not going to tell you what happened."
It doesn't quite work that way, Mario. And you let me just clarify this.
Yeah.
Nobody refused is the operative word here.
Yeah.
There's a piece of paper or an email or a witness that said that when Senator Skoufis, who didn't really follow up on it,
okay,
but nobody refused. It's you just don't get it. We're working on it. I've been through this many times with this Freedom of Information law, which has no teeth at all.
Yep.
But this is different. This is a senator, of a chairman of a committee with oversight responsibility is making a formal request for information, and a week goes by, and 2 weeks go by, and a month, and a whole summer, and here we are in
6 months later.
6 months later, the Attorney General digs into it, and within 24 hours, the information comes out.
Yeah.
So
what do you make of the fact that she decided to issue the report? Essentially, they circumvented the Senate.
And the governor.
Do you see some type of motive or agenda here? Anything of that nature?
Well, I think the sharks that inhabit the Albany, the capital, see and smell blood in the water. Cuomo's callous is not strong enough a word to describe what Cuomo's reaction to the report. Dead is dead. Who cares? You're governor of a state, and you say who cares about anything. Particularly this, and in particular this issue. It just this was building for quite a while. There was the legislature kind of had it both ways. They ceded absolute what amounts to dictatorial, arbitrary power.
Yep, they did.
Far beyond anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. Where
far beyond what he needed.
Yes, and with apparently no supervision. They put the ball. They handed him the lives of thousands, tens of thousands of New Yorkers, and then when it went south, when he, I think by any fair statistical review, when it went south, and whatever polls, I don't know if they did polls, but I don't think Andrew Cuomo is very high in ratings these days. People who would not have dared challenge him in 2 years. He announced right after his third term that he's running for a fourth. That he is running in 2 years. This might have been more of a feeler, a political feeler, as it were.
Okay.
James checks off a number of boxes.
Yep.
She's if elected, she would be the first woman elected governor. She should be the first woman of color elected governor. She has a pretty good political background. I think she was the public advocate in New York City.
She was, yeah.
Yeah, she has that base, as it were. She could be a formidable candidate. So she runs it up the flag and see what happens. Runs it up the polls. See what happens. Is that?
Yeah. Well, speaking of polls, did you see yesterday the Quinnipiac Poll? I believe for the first time on the Quinnipiac Poll, President Biden dipped below 50%. I was pretty surprised at that because, he seems to be on a roll.
Well, the country is 50%, and I think any president.
It's hard. Yeah.
I think you could put JFK in there, and he might not get.
Oh, I'd be interested if anybody out there wants to comment about how they feel about governing by executive order.
Well, I would say to that the president giveth or issues, and the president taketh away. Trump didn't issue an awful lot of, although over a 4-year period, I don't know if he issued 25 or so. President Biden has issued over 25 in less
days.
Yeah, less than a month. It's
some of them fairly controversial, where you would say, maybe this one should go to the legislature because, we need a full debate and discussion on an issue such as transgender athletes competing in women's sports. You want to hear from some of the athletes. You want to hear from some of the coaches.
Well, we've had that discussion. We're having that discussion, and he could just easily rescind that order. I think the larger issue is executive orders per se.
Yeah.
We don't elect president. We elect. We have three branches of government, not one.
Yeah.
The president can't be just issuing executive orders about it. I bypass the legislature.
By the way, I disagreed with them when Trump was doing it as well, because I don't like the fact that one person and a cabinet member can make a policy, and first of all, the real problem with it is the next president can reverse the policy. Now, I'll give you a prime example: the XL pipeline.
Yep.
Because some company is getting that entered into doing this project in good faith is absolutely getting screwed because they have to lay off
10,000
thousands of workers and pay unemployment benefits and severance pay and everything else. I saw a field full of pipe. I don't know if you saw that or not, but they showed, they probably have millions of dollars worth of pipeline pipe just sitting there that they're going to eat. They have all of the right-of-ways that they've paid for over the property, etc. This is costing them billions, and they were under the impression that they could build this pipeline, but that was because it came through executive order. And so the next guy reverses the executive order, and that's why I'm against executive orders, because you know what? Honest people working hard, they have a right to know that that this is a law and not just somebody's opinion. And all right, so listen, we're gonna take a break. We're due for our morning break. And callers, remember, this is Kingston Community Radio, 331-9255. We'd love to hear from you. We're discussing a broad spectrum of subjects this morning, and let's wake up and call in.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
100 years ago, there were 100,000 tigers in the wild. Today, there are as few as 3,200. The Earth's wild animals can't speak up when they need help, but we can. Be the voice for those who have no voice. Visit worldwildlife.org.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer: the drug facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the drug facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/drug facts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas for Habitat for Humanity Restore. Habitat Restores are nonprofit home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used furniture, building materials, and appliances to the public at a fraction of the retail cost. The Ulster County Restore at 406 Route 28 in Kingston needs your donations. Call our hotline at 845-853-7499 to schedule your free pickup. And thanks.
Hi, I'm Ruth Quick from Town of Ulster. I support Kingston Community Radio, and you should too.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Imagination, go ahead.
All right, folks, good morning. We're back on the air. Mario Catalano, Hugh Reynolds here today at Kingston Community Radio, doing our bi-weekly Friday show. Want to talk politics with the community, and we have a caller. So good morning, caller. And what would you like to discuss?
Yes. Good morning. Good morning. Excellent show. I wanted to discuss that. It seems like there's a lot of folks, particularly from the city, that are moving to the area, to Kingston, due to COVID, and it's just interesting as
good subject.
Kingston seems to be getting recognized a great deal, at least regionally, the place to be, the place to live. What do you think could be the potential beyond COVID in terms of tourism or any other developments for our city? That's my thought this morning.
All right.
Thank you, caller. That's a good question.
That's a great subject.
Thank you.
I think we're already seeing some of it in the controversial Kingstonian project. This is a what would you call it? An apartment, a condo complex?
Yeah, it's going to be mixed housing, I believe. Some rentals, possibly some condos, and sales properties.
It's targeted toward it's
higher end.
High end. I would think $2,000 a month would be the minimum to get in there, except for about 10% is set aside for working level, and even that is pretty high. We can touch on a housing report that came out from the county.
Depends on where they're working. It's a percentage of their income, I believe.
Yeah, but then it's based on fair market rent. Fair market rent is apparently approaching $1,200 a month for a one-bedroom apartment in Kingston. I think the fallout will be widespread. There was a preliminary census estimate of Ulster County population for the 2020 census. Somewhat to my surprise, I don't know about you, Mario, but it reported that they expected Ulster County would lose about 3,000 people, about 2% of its population.
I don't know how that happens with 20,000 new Democratic voters. So you seem to have an opinion that that's all legit. I don't. I'm a little skeptical about the fact that people are getting counted in the census in one community and
I know you are. I know.
And then voting in another community.
Yeah, I know.
Because you got to fill out the census, and you can write down whatever address you want. There's nobody tracking it. That's the one thing about the census numbers is it's all confidential.
Well, one of the this is apparently going to be a wide-ranging discussion, which is okay, which is good. We need more of that, I think, in our media. We tend to focus on whatever flares up that day, and there is context. There was it was pretty pervasive too. There was a report going around maybe last year or the year before that people who we're allowed under state law now to register when we renew our licenses, and you just check a box. Do you want to be registered? And so a number of people were concerned that people could just register their cars and not be citizens. And as part of my repertorial duties to check out both sides, I talked to both commissioners, Republican Board of Election commissioners, Republican and Democratic, and I said, "Is it that simple? Can anybody just get a driver's license and become a voter?" And I said, "No. The first question on the voter enrollment, they refer it to motor vehicle refers it to the Board of Elections, the application or the request, and that person comes in to register to be a voter. The first question they ask is, where do you live, and prove it. So I know you have your opinion on that.
Well, so just so I understand, so what the Board of Elections told you that if somebody wants to motor vote,
motor vote.
Okay, register an automobile and check off that yes, they would like to vote.
Yeah.
that doesn't enroll them. They actually have to go to the Board of Elections to do it.
Right. And it's my understanding the Board of Elections, which will be notified, will notify those people. Or they'll be given the instructions at the Motor Vehicle Bureau that you have to go around the corner, literally around the corner, to enroll.
Well, I know
It's not that easy.
I know a woman from Brazil that
Yeah, I know this story.
that whose English wasn't all that great, checked off the wrong boxes, and wound up being a registered voter. So maybe some folks are slipping through the cracks. I'll give the Board of Elections the benefit of the doubt on this one, but
one of the things I'm very careful about is not making the exception the rule. There are no doubt some examples of people falling through the cracks, even hopefully inadvertently.
Somebody that works for me was actually arrested for voting in Columbia County and in New York City. I don't know how they caught him. Got a $1,000 fine. And he was a refugee from New York, had a business in New York City, and then moved up to Columbia County and worked for us on weekends because it was convenient to and was essentially registered to vote in both places. So again, I don't know how that happens. I don't know how pervasive it is. I don't like the idea. What I'm really, I guess, what I really take exception to is the fact that people seem to have a problem, and they're generally one party more than the other, but they seem to have a problem with somebody being required to show identification in order to vote. I think that the integrity of our voting system is so important that at the very least, if I have to show an ID to get on an airplane, I should have to show an IV to cast a ballot. I'm sorry. You just can't have it both ways where, where we think you should show an ID, you can show an ID, but we don't think it's necessary for you to have to show an ID to vote. I don't get it. And I can't even conceive of any reason why anybody would object to saying, I want to make sure my neighbor is registered to vote and is entitled to vote, because that's what this country is all about. You can see how these elections can get carried away. Cripes, we had a riot over people thinking that there was fraud in an election. Well, you know what? Guess what? If we had voter ID cards, and by the way, I'm not going to be able to get on a plane without my vaccination card that says I've been vaccinated with COVID. I mean, you got to be kidding me. I can't get on an airplane without I'm a card-carrying, COVID-vaccinated individual, but I can walk down the street and vote without identifying myself. I go in there, what's your name? Mario Catalano. Oh, yeah, okay. Where do you live? Oh, yeah, you live up there? Yeah, sure, I vote here.
You do sign in, don't you?
Yeah, but trust me, the last time I signed in, the way everybody was keeping their distance, I practically put an X next to my name. And if you could tell that was me, God bless you. But that's not the point. My point is this. Why not clear the air? Why not just insist that people identify themselves and vote, and that we have a truly what you would expect from the United States, not from some third world country where you're hearing stories about mail trucks with, ballots getting dropped off in the middle of the night. And
well, wasn't that essentially Trump's argument that the election was stolen from him?
Well, no one and no one's even interested in investigating. No. And I think that that's wrong. say, you know what, we're going to investigate this, we're going to hear from all parties, and we're going to clear the air. Why do folks want to have this group of people who think that the election was stolen? I'm not one of them, but there are people out there who believe the election was stolen. Why not put that to bed? Why not do a thorough investigation? Why not say, you know what, we want you people to buy in to this presidency, so we don't have to have all of this angst and rancor and partisanship. And so what we're going to do is we're going to thoroughly investigate this to make sure that this election was legit.
Returning to the caller's question, or at least an aspect of it, his notation that I believe it was his notation that in the last 10 or maybe 20 years, but 10 years, that 20,000 the Democratic enrollment has has increased by 20,000. It's almost doubled in 20 years. So that's an issue. But at the same time, the census report, a preliminary report, indicates we've lost 3,000 people. I think the notion that we've lost population for the first time, maybe in the Depression, I wasn't around, but I've seen like 5 censuses in my career here, and every year it goes up and went up.
We got a caller.
All right.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is about the unsolicited ballots and the harvesting of ballots. How do you know those people actually signed those ballots and those people who was legally supposed to get those ballots actually got them? And a lot of people do believe that we lost faith in the election system, especially with what happened this past year and stuff. The fact of the matter is, when you see election employees telling people to leave this place and then pulling out suitcases of ballots, and it does raise some questions, and it definitely should be looked into. Not saying that there actually was voter fraud, but it definitely should be looked into just for the peace of mind for everybody who voted. Yeah. And the thing I like about New York is you have to solicit an absentee ballot. You just don't go by the voter rolls, which are outdated as it is a lot of times.
Yeah.
And it's something where, hey, it's a legitimate concern. And also the deal with some of the executive orders is like the border crossing. You talk about wanting to contain the virus. You're going to have people coming up from these Latin American countries that have the virus. And they're going to be just able to cross into this country. And with the job situations, with the loss of jobs due to the cut down and everything else, with the virus where they shut everything down, there are not jobs out there for people in this country now that want some. And you're going to let all those other people come in through that executive order? Hey, we need to take a good hard look. And the other thing, too, is the way that they're slamming our police departments. We got a lot of great police officers out there. And you also got to have that 1%. Just like in politics, you got a lot of good politicians out there that want to work for the people.
Do you think it's 1% bad ones?
Well, no,
only 1%.
Well, about 1% of the good politicians who want to work for the people. And, hey, there's a lot of things that needs to be looked at in this country, because I tell you what, heaven help us if we lose the filibuster, because then every 4 years, whatever, one party takes over, it's going to be all one-sided. This way, you have the thing where they have to talk to each other, which have not going on down in Washington for the last 16 to 20 years, to where they do not talk to each other. It just could be my way or the highway. Mm. And the last thing I'm going to mention is, have you ever noticed a president in 4 years that before he even took the oath of office, the other side was saying they was going to impeach him, and he never had anything good said about him in in the news media on anything that he done?
You talking about Biden or Trump?
Trump.
Oh.
Yeah, that was.
Biden's not awake to know what's going on.
Well, you know, yeah.
Have you ever gotten a good news conference out of the man?
Well, yeah, he hasn't done a news conference yet, I don't believe. And
I mean, even when he was running for office.
Well, they were
softball questions.
Yeah, yeah.
And who is leading him and who's pulling the strings behind the scenes?
Well,
that's the key.
The thing is, whether we like the idea or not that he never had a press conference, it worked.
Oh yeah, it did work.
And sometimes you take an assessment of your candidate. I mean, I've run some campaigns, and you assess your candidate, and you say, this is what's going to work, and this is not what's going to not work. This is how we protect that candidate. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. We invited 2 state senators to appear on our show before the election, and they declined. And
state senate candidates.
State senate candidates. I apologize. One was a state senator. One was a state candidate. Their opponents were willing to come on and answer whatever questions we had, and 2 were not. Even to this date, there are politicians in Ulster County that won't come on this show because you got to deal with Mr. Reynolds here. Who's been around the block a few times.
They're afraid of the tough question. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
So what they did with Joe was they knew that he couldn't handle any tough questions. He still can't, but it worked because people, in my opinion, were just kind of tired of the Trump Act. I think he accomplished a lot of things in the face of tremendous amount of opposition, but he was his own worst enemy because he didn't know when to shut up.
Right.
And people come out to vote against many times much more than they come out to vote for. And what you want to try and do in politics is not get a lot of people against. Try and represent everybody, and I just his style. I think it was his style. I don't think it was his politics, to be honest with you. I think most of the country still believe, and agrees with his politics. It was just his style. Just I don't know. You, what do you think, you?
No holds bar, attack in the face style to where leave them bloodied and beaten. But I know, and the fact of where. Before the man even took office, they wanted to impeach him. Come on, folks. He haven't even done anything wrong.
Caller, I've had, this is just one person's opinion, but I've had Trump fatigue since about the middle of 2017. This guy's act was obvious, and he's gone. And I wish he would go away. They're going to impeach him next week or 2 weeks from now, and maybe something else will come out. I'd rather talk about going forward. If you have some thoughts about some ideas about to improve things, we'd be glad to hear that. But I don't want to rehash the last campaign.
Right, yeah, no, I understand that completely. That time is gone. Let's get on to healing the country and working for the good of the people. And let's knock off the political politics. You got people out there who need help desperately.
Exactly.
Especially with the COVID stuff and the money. What I would like to see is all the people who lost their jobs get the money, not the people that have been sitting home anyway. Like in my case, I'm retired. I draw a pension from the post office. I draw a pension from the military because I spent 21 and a half years between active.
Thank you for your service.
You're talking to a couple of veterans here.
Yeah, and why should I get to I haven't lost a dime since the COVID. Why should I be getting money? And it should go out to the people who could actually prove through unemployment that they lost jobs because their jobs were shut down and their jobs was closed up or taken away because of this thing. And instead of just throwing money, dollars upon dollars on
Billions.
every problem,
Trillions.
look at the situation.
Yeah.
Because the country cannot keep going on with the debt that is rising in this country. They have to get back at some point where having a balanced budget and being able to pay off some of this debt. I know that's unheard of in government and stuff, and it's stuff that we really have to take a look at. Where they have to start working for the people of this country, not just for their own political gains and stuff, or where they may be in 2 or 3 years, or 4 years, 5 years down the road.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you, again for the call. This was very enlightening. We covered a lot of subject here, and I certainly appreciate your opinion and the fact that you're up so early. You ex-military guys, you know what time reveille is.
Oh yeah, I
About 5 o'clock, wasn't it?
KCR every morning from 7 to 9 during the week and stuff, because hey, there's a lot of great things that come on this radio station, and there's a lot of good hosts and everything else on this, and you do get a chance to talk to some of your political leaders in the area, which is great.
Well, thank you.
I support KCR, and I believe in them, and I also believe in voter ID.
Well, oh, good. Yes, I thank you for agreeing with me.
Because
I'm trying to convince Mr. Reynolds that's.
I don't disagree.
I'm only teasing you. Anyway,
the other thing with that too is a lot of times when people walk into the post, they give you their driver's license so that you could be able to read and spell their name properly to put it into that little stupid keypad that we got to deal with now. And,
well, let me make a suggestion. The next time there's an election, volunteer to be a poll worker.
I have been, except for this past year due to COVID.
All right. Well, the next time out, maybe it won't be, but we need poll workers. Anyway,
Yes,
I want to just remind the listeners that this is Kingston Community Radio. Our call-in number is 331-9255. We're interested in hearing your opinions. There's no censorship on this show other than profanity. All right, and thank you again. We have another caller. So, good morning, caller. What subject would you like to discuss with us?
Well, what I'd like to discuss is that we, the people, have power which we do not use, and we are responsible as citizens to use that power. We see the horrors that are happening across this country, people who can't afford to eat, people losing their jobs, the kind of suicides for our young people and youth, for the kinds of problems that we're going to foresee with our youngest people, and we're seeing now. We're seeing the suicides that are just increasing with our youth. We're seeing the school systems that are just non-functioning and not preparing for the return, hopefully, of our students. We see politicians that spend all their time voting party lines rather than individually assessing where are the problems, where are the difficulties, how can the government assist the people, not the other local politicians, not the national politicians, but we, the people. We can be calling in, we can be writing letters, and if necessary, forming marches on the offices and surrounding the offices of our politicians and say, get our country back in order. One of the great problems we're going to be facing is we're going to open our schools, send the kids back to what? Education, first and foremost, is to educate our children, not to deal with testing, not to deal with curriculums that are designed by oligarchs and designed by corporate bodies and by politicians, but by teachers. Free our teachers from the necessity of teaching, for the tests and exams. No, you teach for our children. Have them get ready, and if they need, give the programs that are necessary to train the teachers so that when our kids come back, the main focus is our children. Have them programs where they just share what their experiences have been during this, terrible, closing of our schools. Have them talk about what do you think can be done. Go to the children and ask them for answers. and remove the tremendous pressure that we put on teachers to say that, no, we're going to be held responsible for meeting these requirements of more kids passing the tests, more kids, being in order. And the other thing, which is critical, we need safety in our schools. They've passed programs in cities and all where you cannot take a kid who has problems and put them out of the regular school. If a kid has mental problems or is bullying and all, you can still teach them, but you make special programs in special locations which help them to get better and encourage them. And your main process is that schools are there to teach kids can do, not can do. And we got to give them that attitude. We got to give them that belief in themselves and the recognition that they can do wonderful things. Not the way that Sally or John are doing, but to find within themselves ways that they can become productive and wonderful social beings. These are the things that need to be done, but are not being done because we're so locked into all kinds of special interests that dictate what happens. We need to protect our kids. They're our greatest resources and our greatest treasures, and we're not doing it. Open the schools, but teach the teachers and have them come in with programs that are going to help our kids to become all that they're capable of doing. Forget some of the nonsensical curriculums, and also you got to get rid of the testing. That is the most invidious thing to prevent kids to develop a positive feeling for themselves and belief in themselves.
Hold it. Caller, if I may interrupt for a moment. Get rid of testing, you said. How do you measure performance without testing?
You can do that in many creative ways. Teachers can do that. Is the kid learning? Are there certain things in the curriculum that are critically important? Have them begin to become more and more to show how they can do it.
All right,
and then just help them to become more important. But teachers can see if you're making progress. Parents can see if they're making progress. How can they learn? But don't put the pressure on them. And the pressure is the thing that causes all the social and mental problems and emotional problems that we're seeing today.
Unfortunately,
I can't. I'm a failure.
We've got to go to break.
Not a failure.
I want
got to sometimes work harder or look at things in a different way. Don't put the pressure on them, which is causing.
Sir, we have to go to break, sir. Please, thank you for calling. We have to go to break now. Thank you very much for your comments.
Yes, great comments.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Someone in your town, at your school, or where you work is suffering from Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. They're dealing with excruciating pain and days when they can't even get out of bed. Chances are someone you know has Crohn's or colitis. Someone like me. I'm Amy Brenneman, and I'm asking you to support the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America to help millions of us cope and to find cures. Visit ccfa.org today to learn more. Help someone you know get back to their lives at ccfa.org.
Think fast. In the short time it takes to listen to this message, a small flame can turn into a big fire. Several minutes more, and thick, poisonous smoke may have filled your lungs and reduced your ability to respond. Give it 5, and your entire home may be filled with flames.
Keep breathing. We've got you.
Don't let your world go up in smoke. Have working smoke alarms and practice an escape plan for you and your loved ones. Learn more at usfa.fema.gov, because fire is everyone's fight.
Hi, this is Tony Marmo from Norman Staffing, and we've been bringing together employers and job seekers since 1980. If you're an employer and have job vacancies, let Norman Staffing help fill them with permanent or temporary workers. We screen, interview, and recommend the best candidates for your company. We make the employment process easier and faster for you. Please call Norman Staffing for your employment needs at 338-9111, 338-9111, or normanstaffing.com.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This programming is brought to you by the Friends of Kevin Cahill. As a strong advocate of local broadcasting, Assemblymember Cahill urges you to support Kingston Community Radio with your time and donations. Your contributions keep KCR vital and on the air at FM 92.5, AM 920, and on the web at mykcr.org. Please join Assemblymember Cahill and send your gifts of $10, $25, or more to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. Together, let's keep KCR alive.
Also, he should. All right, good morning, the Kingston Community Radio audience. We're back. This is Mario Catalano, Hugh Reynolds, and it's that time of morning where we wish birthday greetings to some of our listeners. So today is Friday, so we're going to do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday birthdays today. Friday for February 5th, please wish a happy birthday to Newton Madison from your friends at the Wellness and Healthy Lifestyle Club. And we have a second birthday today, and on February 5th, please wish a happy birthday to Albert Scarcelli from your friends at the Town of Ulster Senior Club. And the winner today of the famous cow pie is Newton Madison. Congratulations, Newton, and happy birthday. And the Boyce Brothers famous cow pie is presented courtesy of the Boyce Dairy Milk House and Kingston Community Radio. Now for Saturday, February 6th, we have a happy birthday for Celia Supel from your friends. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I think it's Supel, Seupel. From your friends at the Wellness and Healthy Lifestyle Club. And Celia, as the only birthday for Saturday, you are officially the winner of the famous Boyce Brothers cow pie, which is presented to you courtesy of the Boyce Dairy Milk House and your friends at Kingston Community Radio. And now we'll get on to Sunday, February 7th, and let's wish a happy birthday to Nadine Nikos from your friends at People's Place. We hope you enjoy your special day. And Nadine, as the only entry for Sunday, you are officially declared the winner of the Boyce Brothers famous cow pie, and that is presented to you courtesy of the Boyce Dairy Milk House and Kingston Community Radio. Thank you all for sending in your birthday entries. Please, we'd love to wish you a happy birthday. Please send your entries into Kingston Community Radio.
Was that the last one?
That was it.
That's it? Okay, you got...
Okay, good morning, caller. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning, my question is about Midtown Kingston. I go past the new circle that they're creating. It makes me think about when they moved City Hall back to Broadway. And I was wondering if you could just speak to that time and that project, and what do you think could be done to do something like that again to help really revitalize Midtown, because it looks like Uptown and Downtown where you've done a lot. But City Hall project, could you speak to that? And when they brought it back, it's always interested me. Thank you.
Good question. Going back, caller, you've probably followed this so-called City Hall project back in the '60s. When I first got my job at the Freeman, it was the first job I had was working on urban renewal, Broadway East, and ultimately City Hall became part of that. The judgment of the government then, in the late '60s under Mayor Garrigan and then by Mayor Koenig, was that if they relocated City Hall to the Roundout area, which had been leveled, they had about, I think, 15 acres of vacant land down there. That if they built City Hall down there, it would attract developers. If you build it, they will come type of approach. And they built it, and they didn't come. And then under the first Mayor Gallo, they moved back. They renovated Old City, what was called Old City Hall, which is now City Hall again. Gets a little confusing. They renovated that, and the seat of government is back where in a national historic landmark, actually. Whether it, I think it. In terms of Midtown, I think the difficulty with Midtown is that it's so stretched out. It's about a mile. I walk it routinely. Mario and I walk all over town, and that's one of our routes to walk from even City Hall to the traffic circle is about a mile, and God, there must be scores, if not scores, of stores. Many of them vacant, as I'm sure you've noticed downtown. I think the revitalization of UPAC helped, but it's kind of like you fix up one area, say around UPAC, or it improves because of that, because of the traffic and tourism and so forth, that other areas kind of slide into neglect. The area around City Hall seems more prosperous now than it was when it was vacant. And then on down the street, it's kind of a linear development, whereas Rondout is a contiguous area,
focused and
it's focused,
concentrated.
Yeah, one improvement leads to another, and so forth. We've seen, and Uptown, the Stockade district, is really booming. I don't know if anybody's had the answer to it. I'm not convinced, personally, that the Broadway corridor renovation that's going on is going to promote redevelopment of Broadway. That's still open for discussion, I think. What's your feeling about that?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I appreciate that history about City Hall. I had forgotten about the context of that. But that's a great point. I never thought about how it's a mile stretch there, and I think even if not the development, just the beautification, maybe some more trees or things like that, that when you're driving down Broadway through the middle of town, it kind of reflects what you see in terms of just, the beauty of the city, just from a cosmetic perspective maybe. And that right there could add quite a bit, maybe some benches to sit, or I don't know, but just something of that nature. If not necessarily, the buildings or businesses themselves, they may come and go. But that to me would seem to be a possibility.
I think that you're both onto something here. So I
I have a little different perspective of it. Number one, it's hard to bring back businesses when there's no parking. So we don't have a great public transportation, and even if we did, nobody uses it. So it isn't like you can open up a business on Broadway and prosper. It's mainly walk-in traffic, and it's an economically depressed area where folks don't seem to have a lot of disposable income, so it makes things a little more difficult. The other issue is, just as an example, take a look at the Kingstonian project uptown. Those developers have been put through hell. There's a group of folks in the town who are essentially against virtually every project that's ever proposed. And it discourages private investment. It discourages people from saying, I think I'm going to build a project at the corner where we took down the old motel. I'd like to do something there, only to find out that you've got years of engineering, environmental studies, all kinds of, issues. If you want to build housing, there are restrictions because you must have mixed housing. You have to have set-asides for some of your proposals. We have, over the years, made development in the city of Kingston very, very difficult. The other thing that most people don't remember is the fact that commercial properties in the city of Kingston pay a higher rent, a higher tax base. They pay higher taxes. So at one point, I owned a building in the city of Kingston. It was a factory where my family manufactured some hardware. Every year, my taxes were 10% of the purchase price of that building, which meant that every 10 years, I bought the building back again from the city of Kingston. I owned the building for 20 years, and I wound up paying in taxes twice what I paid to purchase the building.
Did you get a good deal on the building?
I got a good deal on the building, and I actually sold it and broke even. But the point.
What's the point of your cat?
The point is that the caller's right. We need development. We need people. We need entrepreneurs coming in, putting up their own money. A lot of times government thinks they can do a better job at developing, but they can't. And you need entrepreneurs. You need people with good ideas and good financial backing to do legitimate projects. But the government's got to partner with these folks. You not look at them as enemies and then expect them to be pouring into Kingston, because somebody called earlier. We are getting tremendous notoriety in terms of people from the metropolitan area moving up here due to the pandemic. People working from home. I mean, 15% of the commercial office space in the city of New York is now empty. Jobs have vacated the city like crazy. I have one of my children living at home who had a job in the city as a software engineer working for a company that had a huge space that were paying millions in rent, and they closed it and said, we're not coming back. We're all working from home. So we have, an influx of people who can work from anywhere.
And this is a very, I mean, I call this heaven. This is a tremendous community. The beauty is beyond belief. We've got everything. We've got a river, we've got mountains, we've got meadows, we've got forests, we've got woods, trails, everything you could possibly want for a beautiful and enjoyable lifestyle. But getting brick and mortar improvements are going to be very difficult when you also have a community and a cadre of people who don't want to see any development.
Yeah. And I appreciate your insights are terrific. Thank you for that. I'm a big fan of the show, and I just want to make a comment. Perhaps the two of you on your next walk sometime could take the show on the road. I could see the two of you talking to folks on your walk. I think could be a very engaging commentary. Maybe that's a special show sometime. Thank you, gentlemen. That was great.
Thanks for calling, caller. Some of our walks are somewhat X-rated, caller, so we'd have to edit ourselves, unlike in the studio.
This summer, we're going to try and put together a walk, a listener's walk, and have some of our listeners join us, and we'll engage in some interesting conversation.
Just a comment on your comments, partner. As a news person, I like to hear all sides of any issue, and there are extremists on every issue. As we started our broadcast talking about the state of national politics, the notion of government quote unquote partnering with developers. I'm a little apprehensive about. Anytime, I shouldn't say anytime, but sometimes when that happens, those partnerships can be a little insidious. The developers contribute to campaigns. People get reelected. They have oversight over the people that contributed to their campaigns. Sometimes corners get cut. Things don't get done quite the way they should be. There are folks out there that need to be heard. These projects can impact their neighborhoods. It's their community. It's all our community, by definition, is all of us, not just the folks who have the money and the interest and the willingness to come into our communities, and they're certainly welcome to come in and invest. That's very important to a growing, thriving community. But it is a community. And we all need to be heard, and once heard, then government, like a newspaper for that matter, has all sides on the table. They can weigh and balance. That's why we elect these folks. That's why elections are so important, because we're electing the people who are guiding our who are determining our future, and. Again, all sides, the sides need to be heard. Sometimes the voices are strident. Sometimes it's ugly. But things do, it moves the needle somewhat. Again, with the Kingstonian, that was pretty much a high income project to attract. It's a sector of the community that's underrepresented in terms of housing. And that would attract the so-called high rollers coming from New York City, who would love a view of the Catskills,
and locals too, who wanted to
there
retire
are local
and
people,
sell their homes and move,
exactly
to a nice apartment,
to a nice apartment, and
what
can afford it.
Let me clarify what I was saying. So when I meant partnering, what I was trying to say is, not to get in bed with developers, but we have. Ulster County is sandwiched between Orange County and Greene County, okay? So in Greene County, the IDA took their fees and money and bought property, made it shovel-ready. And by shovel-ready, I mean they put in the utilities, they have water, they have sewer, they have electric, they got everything. Now, a company wants to come in, put up a building, and put some people to work.
And all the zoning is done.
And all the zoning's done. So what they've done in anticipation of this, they've worked within the community to create shovel-ready sites that can be used to and expedite it. So it saves a company probably a year in having to come in, identify property, find property, purchase the property, and all this other stuff. That's what I was talking about. Orange County, again, the same type of environment created by the exec there, Newhouse, where there are shovel-ready sites that, they got that Legoland project. They were competing with communities around the country for that site, and they beat everybody because they made it possible to happen without years of agonizing purchasing and locating, all engineering and all this other stuff. All I'm saying is Ulster County does none of that. As far as I can tell, does none of that. So if a company is interested in the Hudson Valley, they can go to Orange and find a site. They can go to Green and find a site. They have to drive past Ulster, going in either direction because we don't have any sites, and so that's what I'm saying when I say government should, partner. Is there are things governments can do, and by the way, it eliminates all the angst over whether a property should be sited at this location, or we have to go to the zoning board to get a property zoning changed. All that should be worked out ahead of time. This should become very easy for a company to come here and create jobs and put people to work. That was it. That's what I meant, and I should have been a little more, clear about.
Okay, you're forgiven.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, what you're speaking of is right here in Ulster County. It's called the IBM complex.
Well,
that's as shovel-ready as you're going to get, isn't it?
I don't want to say anything because I'm related to him, but former Assemblyman Guerin warned. He absolutely warned the people who were cutting their deal that this was going to be a disaster, and the man was prophetic. Because, I don't know. I mean, they had the opportunity, and I'm not, I've only heard one side of the story, but potential tenant after potential tenant would say that the owners were impossible to deal with. And that, again, this is hearsay, but it was the previous owner was quoted by someone who told me, who had been negotiating for some space, that the owner said to him, "There's no such thing as a win-win. One of us is going to win, and one of us isn't." And if you go into business with that kind of an attitude, it is no wonder why the place is still empty. And it was a disaster. All environmental problems, the properties. There were like how many properties in there? 30, 40 properties, all mangled and.
The jigsaw puzzle.
Oh my God! It was just what a disaster. But see that should have been. That should have been something that an enlightened government might have purchased directly from IBM, and
$3 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then he took his $27 million mortgage on it, pocketed $24 million before the first rent payment was due, and then didn't want to pay taxes and insisted, even though he had a $27 million mortgage, that the property was only worth half that. So I don't know if he explained that to the bank.
Well, of course, in terms of context, Mario, which I think this program provides on occasion, 1998, I believe, was when Allen Ginsberg negotiated that deal with IBM. The property was up for sale. The county government was being run through the old 33-member board of county legislators, usually going in 33 different directions.
I was one of them.
No, well, you were prior to that, I think.
Yes, no, not then, but yes.
At 20, yeah. I know you're a former
I
legislator.
experienced the traffic jam.
Yeah, it was a traffic jam. The notion that group of people could actually coalesce around which was a serious commitment and a long-range commitment, is unlikely. I think we had a county administrator who did what he was told, and apparently wasn't told much to do. The current Ryan administration seems to be revisiting that idea, but
I hope
it's somewhat controversial. There are legislators, again, two sides, as my grandmother used to say. There's two sides to everything. The notion that the county is, quote unquote, going into the real estate business. That this is different than your IDA concept, very different, fundamentally different.
Yeah.
But taking over a very large building, what's it, 100,000 square foot building, the old Bank America building, incurring some fairly large bills and separating it from the rest of the maze and restoring what had been a neglected property. There's a cost to doing this. But I think and we'll probably hear more when County Executive Ryan gives his annual State of the County address, I think next week, the 16th. We may hear some more details on what his administration is planning there. But to have that 300-acre complex, shovel-ready, I might add, complex sitting there vacant for now over 20 years, largely vacant, is an indictment of, I believe, county governments.
Oh, absolutely. Every administration going back 20 years, I believe, had a hand in it. The town had a hand in it. It was virtually a cancer, and it's just a shame. It's just a shame. Hopefully, we can turn that around, because I think that site would have a tremendous potential as a commercial site. That's another thing we've got to do. I mean, we just got to get some of our retail back. I mean, I hear people lamenting all the time that you can't buy anything in Ulster County, that you have to go online, or you have to travel to Albany, or you have to travel to Woodbury, and I don't know. I just don't understand that, because our population has only decreased by 3,000 people. So what happened? And we're getting all these folks in who seem to be fairly affluent, because the real estate prices have increased probably 20%, 25%. Folks paying $1,200 a month for an apartment, they can easily afford to go shopping. It sounds like they have disposable income. So why do we not have any retail? Now, again.
Well, Mario, I think a report that came out of the county planning department, which is actually an annual report, which should be an annual news story, tracking what amounts to housing and jobs in this county, painted a very grim picture.
It did.
Very grim picture.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Let me just paraphrase. Sure. There are the kind of cream of the economic crop coming in here with a lot of disposable income, but you can't buy 3 refrigerators every month. The just beneath that surface of prosperity is some fairly desperate, according to this report, and it's not. It didn't suddenly happen. It didn't happen. It was exacerbated by the pandemic, obviously. But there's a large pool of people who Ryan has commented on from time to time who live from paycheck to paycheck. A $1,200 apartment for them would probably represent 30 or 40 or 50% of their income. And when you get done paying for your lodging and your food and your car, there's not a lot left over. And that is and the jobs aren't there. The jobs that forget $15 an hour. That's a poverty level job. It's probably twice that to make $30 an hour, which is $1,200 a week, $50,000 a year. The household income in Kingston is like redline.
So let me present just a slightly different perspective, okay?
Which I did.
Yeah, no, I mean since the sales tax is now charged on online sales, which we didn't always do. Now we do. What I noticed is that this year, in spite of the pandemic, Ulster County sales tax revenue barely went down.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is people in Ulster County are still spending money because our sales tax revenue is there. However, they can't spend it in Ulster County. So, I mean, I'm Exhibit A. Okay, I just had to buy cereal online because my grocery store stopped selling my favorite cereal. So I had to go to Amazon to order 3 boxes of cereal because, again, somebody at the ShopRite forgot to, order it, or who knows what happened. But the shelf's been bare for the last 3 times I've been there, so I finally gave up. But my point is, people are still, spending money. The amount of money that folks have spent has stayed fairly constant. So it tells me that there could be room for some additional retail here, the right retail, if we could. I can't, this is another statistic I saw. 20% of the clothing that's purchased online is returned.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, I mean, that's insane. And the reason is because you can't try it on. So you buy it, and they send you a return label. And
you pay for it.
And but that's nuts when you could just go into a store and try something on and buy it. So I don't know. I'm hoping that we can at least. I don't ever expect the Hudson Valley Mall to return to its original grandeur, but I think that the medical center that they built up there is beautiful. I think it's functioning. I think it's a great service to the community. And I wish maybe that, Target's busy. I shop there, and
this is my point. Target's target audience is not the people from New York. I don't see a lot of wealthy, well-dressed people parking Mercedes Benzes in that parking lot. I would add this. This was kind of a blind spot in my reporting, and I'll admit to it. I tended to expect that the experts knew what they were talking about most of the time, which is why you asked the other side their view. The people that closed Macy's and Penny's and all those stores in the mall were pretty sophisticated real estate people, merchandising people.
Yep.
And Mario, you've been involved in some of these types of operations. They look at the demographics of the community. Can this community support a Macy's? No. Can this community support a Penny's? No way. And so on and so on.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that. I don't want to paint a grim picture, but I think we got to face reality in this community and then deal with it, as opposed to the beautiful mountains and the lovely Hudson and all that. And I've lived here my whole life, and I certainly appreciate that. But my kids don't live here. They don't find work here. Fortunately, they're not far away, but there's families that don't see their grandchildren. They don't see their kids. So there is that. That's the fact of the matter. I don't know. Let's move on to something else.
I think we can. Some balance would be,
balance. I'm interested in this subject.
By the way, Kingston Community Radio 331-9255. If anybody has an opinion on our opinion,
I'm interested in when I worked at the paper in the old days, when radio stations like GHQ and KMY had active news departments, you could hear them reading the Freeman over the air because the paper.
The paper would rattle.
One guy actually read continued on page 6. He was a new guy. There was a story that a lot of people have followed about this House member, this Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia.
Yep.
Who I guess by any fair definition is kind of a wingnut, and her views are out there. She has been in a sense censored by her colleagues. Yesterday, the Democratic majority voted to remove her from committees that Nancy Pelosi had appointed her to as punishment for her viewpoints, which are pretty radical right. I mean, by any fair assessment.
Yeah.
You and I discussed this briefly before going on. The notion that a duly elected member of Congress from Georgia, in this case, could be punished for her viewpoints by members of Congress from Rhinebeck and Middletown and California and Wisconsin and the rest of it, and people who may disagree with her say, "Well, that's good." Well, I think in terms of freedom of speech, I would be certainly taken aback if there was a large Republican majority in the House of Representatives that disagreed with my congressman. Now, I may or may not have voted for Antonio Delgado, either in the primary or in general elections. However, he was, by a fairly substantial margin, was reelected to a second term last year in this district, and that somebody from California, as it were, could punish Delgado for opinions that he holds that are different than theirs is in my view undemocratic.
And Huey, I completely agree with you. The people in her district elected her. They are entitled to have full representation in the House of Representatives, and my assumption is that our congressman, I refer to Party Line Delgado, probably voted to remove her from the committee. And in 2 years, if the Republicans take the House, what are we going to see? A tit-for-tat response where they don't like something Delgado said and they decide to remove him from a committee? First of all, I am astounded that our House of Representatives, people sworn to uphold the Constitution and the First Amendment and the right would do this. I mean, they are so polluted by their partisanship and animosity and their unwillingness to work together that a vote of this nature could even take place. And what is it? It's nothing. It was nothing more than a political stunt. What they wanted to do, they wanted to force the Republican members of Congress
to take a stand,
to vote not to remove her, so that they could then go into the next election. So what they were doing was they weren't defending the Constitution. They were creating an issue. They were thinking about 2022 and they didn't care one lick for the 500,000 or 600,000 people that she represents. We will disenfranchise those people because we want to create an issue here. And you know what? It's starting to really get old because we were told that President Biden was going to bring unity. And what kind of unity have you seen? I'm seeing Republican members of Congress disenfranchised. I'm seeing a total baloney impeachment trial. I am seeing nothing. I haven't seen one thing. Notice, again, Antonio Rubber Stamp Delgado.
I think you've made your point.
voted to impeach Donald Trump. Now, look, I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not even an attorney. I didn't go to Harvard like he did, but I can read. I read the statement that Trump made. Not only that, this attack on the Capitol was planned well in advance. They have proof of that. But they're insisting, they so fear Trump that they want to try and prevent him from running again. And, the problem is if the president continues to do what he's doing and one edict after the other with no laws, and that Trump's going to win by a landslide if he runs again. I don't think he will. I don't think he should. But my point is, this is all about politics and posturing, and we, the people, are kind of just left out of this thing. It's really getting a little old for me. I always considered myself a moderate, and I worked on both sides of the aisle when I was in the legislature. I'm still friends with virtually every Democrat I served with on the legislature, and I just don't get it. I don't get it. I just don't understand where this complete breakdown occurred and why somebody can't take the initiative to begin the healing process. And certainly the actions that I'm seeing, there's no initiative to even attempt to do that.
Good point, Kat. Visiting a subject near and dear to my heart, to my family's heart, high school basketball.
Oh, yeah, right.
Now, you and I have gone to a few games.
Yes, we have.
My older son played for Kingston High School basketball. And
he was slightly larger than his father, though.
A few inches.
And you played, who'd you play for?
Poughkeepsie High.
Poughkeepsie, okay, all right.
Against Kingston, I might.
Against Kingston, did you win or lose?
I think we had a pretty good team.
Oh, okay, all right.
And Kingston was going through a phase. Although I think Joe Ewell, I'm dating myself, but Jumpin' Joe was in his prime in those days. Maybe Kingston beat us. It's been a while.
Yeah, you probably were watching Joe shoot.
It was fun to watch Joe shoot. He could fill it up.
Yeah, he could hit. I watched him at the Y in his, and this guy could hit the from anywhere on the court.
I played against him.
He was terrific.
He was tough to guard.
He
was a hell of a ball player. Anyway, it's been announced that the Kingston School Board has nixed, to use a headline word, N-I-X. Nobody uses words like nix.
Yeah.
Has nixed high-risk sports for the winter season. And high risk is defined as basketball and, among others, indoor sports. That's a decision by the duly elected school board upon a recommendation of the superintendent. And it brings into discussion, maybe among callers, this balance that we're trying to achieve between safety, which is a primary concern, and our children getting back to school. In this case, it's sports. I read that with some dismay. My grandson would have been this season a varsity basketball player and maybe a starter, unlike his grandfather and his father. He would have carried the banner forward for us. And the kid has worked most of his young life on being a good basketball player.
Yeah.
You know, we who are not good don't appreciate what it takes other than some native talent. You got to have some talent, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into these young people, these teams, the coaches, to achieve success in sports. And his school is Bethlehem in suburban.
And you know, it helps a lot of kids get to college.
No question.
And to afford college.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely shameful because it's part of the educational process, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Team sports, you learn a lot of things through team sports. School spirit, the stands used to be packed.
Working with others. Yeah. All of the things that are missing.
I think that just I'm probably a bit prejudiced here, a bit biased, but I think the balance has gotten a little bit out of whack when it comes to the schools. There seems to be a lot of scientific evidence that indicates the schools should be open sooner than later, that a certain return to normalcy, as you say, I think they can. I see it in pro sports. I mean, there's fans in the stands. Not a lot of them. You may have a stadium with 80,000 people and 10,000 people sitting there, or 15, or whatever. The Super Bowl, I think, is going to be about a third.
Yeah, about 25,000.
About 25,000 people. Boy, imagine those. Imagine what those tickets are going for. That they couldn't have sports, even if they played in empty gyms.
Exactly.
The kids could compete. And
let me ask you this. All right. What was the downside? Let me see. We're gonna spread the COVID to some athletes, perhaps on the other team, or maybe even on your team. Okay. So, what is the average duration of this COVID infection in a healthy 17-year-old athlete? 2 days. I think one of my sons, who's is an athlete, had it, and he said felt like he had a cold for a day. I don't understand. They could test. I had a test. Somebody put a swab in my nose. The next day, I got the result. They could test before a game. We're going to play on Friday. Let's get everybody nose swabs on Thursday. It seems to me that they don't even want to attempt. This is like an excuse to just, whoa, this is great. We can walk from this, and they have no, in my opinion, compassion or feeling for how badly these poor student athletes are reacting after working for a year for that basketball season, trying to make that team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are so many things that they could do. And again, we're not exactly talking about a senior basketball league in a nursing home here, okay, where if somebody gets sick, they're going to die. This is a pretty
relatively safe.
Relatively safe environment. And I mean, I am so disappointed in these educators, so-called educators, who are more concerned about themselves than they are about the kids. I'm just really to the end of my ropes with this. I saw another very interesting statistic, okay? In New York City, 147,000 people pulled their kids out of public school and are sending them to parochial and private schools. One city, 147,000 people. That was reported yesterday. And across the country, millions of kids have been pulled out of public schools and are going to parochial schools because the public schools are falling apart. They were falling apart to begin with, but now that they have COVID as an excuse, they are just, out in left field someplace. So think about that. That's going to have, you want to talk about having an impact on public education. This is a tragedy.
Well, the tragedy is I won't see my grandson play basketball this year. That's a sad thing.
Terrible.
That's a terrible thing.
And what year is he now? Is he a sophomore?
He's a junior.
He's a junior. So this was a big year for him.
This was the year he would have made a team.
Oh, man.
Well, let's go from that to, this is fun reading the Freeman on the air.
Yeah, I mean, at least there's something in it today.
I had followed this the first iteration of muddy discharges into the Esopus Creek. We talked about our pristine environment, and this is a much broader subject than the headlines might suggest. It goes back about 100 years, more than that. I think the reservoirs were created through, I believe it was the 1905.
Early 20th century, absolutely.
By an act of the legislature to provide reliable water for New York City, which due to the influx of immigrants in the 1880s, 90s, and right through the 1920s, I believe, was just growing very, very, very rapidly. And there were major public health issues involved down in the city because they didn't have the water. And New York City owns the reservoirs. They created them. They built them. They pay taxes, which they could have avoided. If they
were the biggest tax. They paid, I think, about 40% of the town of Olive taxes.
Yeah, you remember they used to sell real estate up there with the tagline tax free. I think they called it tax-free olive.
Wow.
Almost tax-free olive. It was pretty low. And a few other towns. Hurley gets a piece of it. Marbletown gets some of it.
Yeah.
I don't know about Ulster. If Quigley's listening, he could attest to that. But they discharge. They have to manage the water, obviously, and on occasion they discharge water into the Esopus Creek. Now, that water that comes out of the reservoir is as pristine as you could get. It is country Catskill Mountain water.
The top, that comes out. The bottom is what's sent down the Esopus, the mud.
Well, I'm not an engineer, and I don't know that, and I'll accept that. But the net effect between that and this water roiling down the creek, the Esopus Creek, and the creek banks contribute a great deal to the mud. Now, this is the second time in maybe 5 or 7 years that this controversy has erupted. Back in the Hine administration, when Mike Hine, a former county executive, took on the water Department of what's it called? Environmental Protection.
The Department of Environmental Protection, DEP.
The DEP of the city. He took them on, and a memorable phrase of Mike's, he called them an invading army. Well, the army invaded in 1905, actually, long before Mike was in. So, but then Mike later apparently joined the army and fought the railroad with the help of New York City. But I think the bottom line is, it's not going to change. It should be mitigated. There's no reason we have to look at this muddy water gets right into the Hudson River, which is
and it goes all the way to the Esopus.
Yeah, it's 15 miles away.
And by the way, Esopus gets their drinking water out of the Hudson.
So do a lot of places. And there was a hearing this week where the water people explained why they were doing what they were doing. But again, they can pretty much do what they want to do. And this is not to say we can't protest it or have maybe our state legislators exercise some
if I remember correctly, this all started because New York City was ordered to build a filtration plant that mitigated this. and the cost of the plant was going to be a couple of $2 billion, and they decided we'd rather not do that. Why don't we just dump the muddy water down into the?
I think you're right about that.
This is what happened, and listen, I understand that you don't want to spend $2 billion, but we're the host communities here. That creek, I mean, people love to fish it and do other things and boat, and why should this contaminate the Hudson River and people's drinking water? That's not fair. That's not. I mean, that's really. I think that this is going to be an issue that's going to have to be addressed.
I think they again. I'm not an engineer, but they do have a holding area for the overflow, which is what they're doing basically. And they have the land. I don't see why they can't build another holding area rather than dumping it into the creek.
Yeah.
Again, for a few million.
Yeah, somebody's got to sit down and work this out, Huey. That's half of the problem with these governments is.
They don't talk to each other.
Macy's doesn't talk to Gimbals.
Well, not to cut you guys off, it was a great show today. As
Thank
my
you.
father would say goodbye.
Say goodbye.
All right.
Well, goodbye, everybody. See you in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Yep.
You guys have a good weekend.
All righty.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for sharing the morning with us and participating in Kingston Community Radio, KCR.